Okay, so in the next part of our interview series for the Southern Nature Art Exhibition, I'm speaking to Mandi Baykaa-Murray, who is a wildlife artist and known for painting on feathers, and hence the name Feather Lady, as she is sometimes known. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, like, how did it all start? So how did you get involved with working with birds of prey?
You know, it was a complete fluke. I'd taken my little girl, who was then 8, to a birthday party in a local, it's a farm that's converted to a family day out place, and dropped her off in the ball pit with her friends, wandered outside, and there was a marquee and a man with owls and eagles, and he was stood there, and I just was drawn straight to it, and got chatting with them, and didn't have a camera because I wasn't prepared, and that really was it. And I got chatting with a fella and his wife and said, can I come back in the week with my camera and take photos? Because at that point I was not a practicing artist. I mean, I've always loved art, but I wasn't a painter by any means. Back in the day when I was younger, I did college and I studied printmaking. So this whole painting thing over the last 10 years has just happened. And it's amazing. And meeting these birds was the catalyst. It made that happen. So, and at the time I met the birds, I was a photographer. I was doing just for myself. I used to do weddings and baby portraits and things. And yeah, I said to him, can I come back in a week with my camera? And he went, yeah. He said, I'm here every day. He said, just come when you want. I said, you might live to regret that, because I'm going to be back a lot. So that was it. And I literally, I started just by taking photos. And in my head, I was just after a beautiful kind of head and shoulders shot of a bird, because that was like the pictures I was taking of people and babies. And he said, come with me. And he took me down the path, and he got these birds literally flying around my head, and it was all action and exciting. And I just, well, it was the start of the whole of this now, which it was incredible. So obviously I started with the camera, but after about sort of 6 months to a year, was the artist inside me said, oh, I want to paint these birds or draw. I was sketching and drawing first, and I did. And as well, over that 12 months, I started drawing, but I also spent a lot of time down there with the birds, and eventually got myself a little weekend job there, helping with them and working with them. So then I started to learn about them. I was handling them, I was feeding them, I was cleaning them. And that, again, everything all fed into where I am now. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And yeah, changed my life really, all by now.
Was it then important for you to then also work with the birds to understand them a bit more as well, as part of what you're then producing as your art, or did that just spiral as it went along?
It all spiraled, and in fact, I think the working with them gave me the insight to understand them more, probably to paint them a bit better. I mean, obviously I had to learn to paint along the way, which I did, and I loved that. Was another, it was a challenge and a growing thing. It was just, I was finding me. I mean, you know, I'm not young, and I sort of been through my life being a mum and sort of doing bits and bobs, but this gave me the thing, I suppose, that I've been missing. And it was really lovely to find something that I loved that much. When I was a kid, it was always horses and dogs and cats, and it's always been animals and birds, but this was different, and gave me the release to express the art that has been bubbling away inside me. I think it did just all come together in a really, I don't know, magical way, I suppose. It sounds really daft, but it was such, the last 10 years has been amazing, really. And yeah, working with the birds, and that's what started the feathers. Obviously I'd go in, and my first job of the day was to clean out the aviaries, and when they were molting, there were all these feathers all over the floor, and I couldn't bring myself to hose them away down the train, so I'd be picking up all these feathers and stashing them in my pocket. And I kind of thought, I wonder how I can use these in my art, which would, by then, I suppose I was sort of a couple of years into painting. I'd started exhibiting really small local exhibitions, and gradually sort of gaining confidence when things got accepted, and I was sort of tentatively showing friends and family what I was painting, and when I was getting really lovely reactions, it just sort of boosts your confidence and makes you think, oh, okay, I'm on the right track. And then one day the falconer came in really excited in the morning, and he said, oh, I've got something, you're going to love this, you're going to love it. And I was like, what have you got? And he got his phone out and he got a photo out of a painting of a bird on a feather. And I was like, wow. And that's my jaw hit the floor, thinking, how on earth would you do that? And he said, that's what you got to do. He said, that's it, that's what you got to do. And I was I don't know how. And he said, well, go on, take a bunch of feathers home and practice, just have a go. And I thought, well, what have I got to lose? And that was then the start of the feathers, and it all came together really nicely. So yeah.
So
And
did you teach yourself to paint on the feathers then, or did you find tutorials or other people?
Yeah, no, I did ask I asked a friend, the girl I worked with, she was also quite a lovely artist, and I said, how do I do it? And she said, I don't know. I said, no. And I did sort of try googling it, but I thought, I've got to just suck this and see. So I thought, well, acrylic paint goes on most things and dries pretty quickly, so I'll try that. And I did, and on my first ones, I've still got my very first one downstairs that I did, and it's so basic, but I love it because it's the very first one I did. And yeah, and when I was sort of showing people, I got the oh, wow, and that instantly makes you think, oh, okay, I'm on the right track, I should pursue this a bit. And I just have, and they've always had that wow factor. I think just because it's on a feather, but it does take a lot of practice. It's, you know, and I'm learning all the time. When I started, I would use the strong, stiffer, like primary wing feathers and tail feathers, because they are firm and much easier to kind of deal with. And nowadays I'm quite enjoying painting on softer, fluffier feathers, because it gives that, you know, the addition to the illusion of lightness and feathery and all that, which they are. But yeah, it's really interesting to see, you know, how far you can push these things. So
yeah, well, they're definitely stunning. I know when I looked at them and saw them, I was like, wow, that's so cool. And it's actually so clever to tie in, you know, the real physical being as well as the art, like actually having that connection is really beautiful. And obviously,
it's lovely, because, and to me it's a sort of like the circle of life. You know, these feathers have done their job. They've and they have so many jobs on a bird. You know, they keep them up in the air, they keep them warm, they keep them dry, they protect them from predators, they keep them cool when it's hot. Yeah, they're like little nerve endings, so they can feel what's around them. They're so amazing as structures. And then they're just shed every year. They fall out and they're lying on the floor, and like to be able to sort of pick it up and then do something lovely with it and give it another new lease of life. And obviously with a bird, so you're relating it back to its origins. I love all that. So yeah, it's pretty special.
So how does, obviously you said you've been doing this for now like 10 years or so, how does the inspiration remain? Do you just keep going back to the place and seeing different birds, or how does the inspiration keep?
Yeah, it's evolving, because as time went on and I started sort of becoming an artist, like that took over. The job's finished with the birds. The falconer got a proper full-time falconer assistant. I was sort of an assistant, and I was learning on the way and loving every minute of it, but I was never going to be a falconer. It fascinated me and it was brilliant. So that it's like it just, everything evolved. Like that tailed off, the art expanded, and so I was busier doing things on weekends, doing exhibitions and events and things. But I've never lost that love for those birds, and I do try and go back whenever I can and do visit other birds and other centres. And what has happened, it's changed a lot as well. It's 6 years ago I got a dog. And so ever since, for that time now, I walk every day, and that has sort of become a really special time of day when I'm out there in the wild, in the countryside with nature, you know, seeing whatever birds come my way. And that's taken over. It's just, it's the same but different. So, you know, it's being out there. And I mean, I don't paint, I'd love to paint landscapes, but I don't think I'm very good at it. All of everything I see, it just feeds in, and it just keeps that inspiration going. It's lovely. And you know, I quite often see buzzards and kestrels around here. I don't see that many owls. I hear them, and it's just always exciting, and it gives you that buzz. And then I come back and I've got a gazillions of photos that I took of the birds when I was with them, and I'm always taking photos of everything. That, you know, you'll see something, oh yeah, that reminds me, and you either come back and rummage around and find a photo, or I might be looking through my photos and it reminds me of where I was and what I was doing, and I, you know, want to paint a particular bird. So that works both ways. Yeah.
So I suppose having the lockdown would have been kind of difficult, I suppose, because you wouldn't be able to go to aviaries, but you would have the local wildlife instead.
Yeah.
Has that affected your work, I suppose, without the
lockdown? Was an interesting time, wasn't it? It was it initially, for me, it was just a massive disappointment. Like I planned big plans for 2020. I got together with another artist, and we just want to just get out there and do stuff and get our art out there. And then COVID hit, and like everything was wiped. So initially we all thought, oh, we're all in for a couple of weeks and it'll all be all right. And it just went on and on and on. And every week the next thing was cancelled and the next thing was cancelled. So there was this sort of fight between, wow, I've got all the time in the world to just paint, yay, and then it was like, oh, I've got nothing to paint for, and the paintings were stacking up and the exhibitions were being cancelled, and it just felt like, what's the point? And it's really negative, but it wasn't a nice time, was it? It was difficult. So I thought, right, what do I want to do? So I thought, right, no pressure, nothing to paint for, there's no deadlines, I'm just going to play. So I went and I found an online course actually, and just did a whole load of abstract work. So it was like complete switch off from work and concentrating on birds, if you like. But then, and I was playing, and it was mark making and textures and patterns and shapes and colours, and it felt a little bit odd, but it was fun, and it was just playing. But what that actually led to was I discovered a new medium by mistake, because I bought some ink, and instead of buying acrylic ink, I bought some alcohol ink. And I didn't use it, and I didn't know what it was for. And after a while, I picked this stuff up and thought, oh, I don't know what this is, and Googled it and thought, oh, and I had some of the paper it suggested to use with it. So I thought, well, I'll see what this does. Had a little play, and this stuff was amazing. So I then found a new way of, everything being so miserable, I just felt the need to do colour and be bright and colourful. And as much as I love my birds, they're very much all earth tones. Generally, I've got a very limited palette that I use of colours. And so I just splashed out with these really, really vibrant alcohol inks that are loose and free, and it was like colouring outside the lines and all going mad. And I really, really enjoyed it. I found myself instantly, birds were appearing in these pictures, which I sort of can't help myself. It's quite funny, really. That was lovely. So these things that happen to us, like, it's not nice, but then, you know, something can come out of it. So that was a lovely little distraction for a while.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I never even thought about, obviously people have mentioned the creative industries during the last year or so and the difficulties. I never even thought about, they say to all of us, like, a way of relaxing, you can colour, you can paint, but if that's your livelihood, it's not really a switch off, because that's your bread and butter, that's your everyday. It's not really anything different. And like you say, if you haven't got deadlines, it's kind of, there is no end goal. And I know I struggle with that. If there's no end, where do I go? So if it was like a normal situation and you were creating a new piece, what is your process? So how do you start? How do you complete a piece, whether it's on feathers or however you style?
So say I've got a bird in my head and I want to paint, let's say a barn owl, because I love barn owls. They're my favorite things to paint. So I'll know, I've got a whole load of photos. I'll know what pose I want. And then I'll go through my feathers. I've got like stashes of feathers in poly bags.
Oh wow.
A bunch of macaw feathers that somebody gave me. So I've got all these bags and boxes of feathers. So if I know I want to paint a barn owl, and I want white fluffy feathers, I'll go to my white fluffy feather bag and I'll rummage through and I'll just get them all out, and that is they speak to you. You know, one of them will go, oh, and I think, oh, that one looks really nice, that one's perfect, and I'll have a few and I'll think, right, and then it's a case of looking at the picture, looking at the feather, and which way does the feather go, because they all sit differently. Like depending on where they're on the bird, they might curve left or curve right, or be straight or be bent, or you know, they're natural things. So they're all quirky and different. So it's working out which way it lies nicely. You have to imagine it in a frame and how it's going to be, and then it's a case of working out. Sometimes I'll draw around the feather on a bit of paper and then compose, like sketching a rough where the owl's going to be on the paper, and think, right, okay, that's where I'm going to put it on the feather. And so there's a whole load of that goes on with every single one. Is which way round is it going to go? What's the composition going to be? Is it going to be the whole owl or just its face, or all of that? That all happens with everything I do. And then when I'm happy with where I'm going to start, I just start off. I usually do a very light layer of white acrylic, just sort of block it in on the feather where I want my picture to be. Get a little pen or paintbrush outline. I've just got a couple here, so that's a really very fluffy bit, and I've just done the white blob, and then I've just drawn in where I'm going to paint the owl, and then that's ready to go, really. So and then it's I paint. Everyone sort of looks at my stuff, says, oh, you're really detailed, but I feel like I paint fairly loosely, fairly blobby, quite impressionistic, but obviously the eyes have to be in the right place, and the beak has to be right, and they have to be shiny and things. So they it starts off loose. I block in the rough colours, and then I gradually refine with the layers as I go, and then when I'm happy with it, I'll stop. And then it goes in another poly bag to protect it. But it's just protecting them from moss all the time. So the other thing I do, obviously I walk the dog every day, and I'm always picking up feathers out and about. That's where I get the majority of them from. When I come back, they go in my bum bag, which is full of dog treats and things, and then maybe once a month I empty my bum bag out of feathers. They all go into a bag in the deep freeze, which in the big deep, like cold deep freeze, not just the fridge freezer, and that will hopefully kill anything that might be living in them, because obviously they're all out in the woods and wherever with little things, little creepy crawlies and microscopic things. So they go in the freezer for at least 48 hours. Quite often I'll leave them in there for ages, and then they come out when I'm ready, and I'll give them all a shampoo, literally proper, like the hair, clean them all up, dry them off, and then again they go into a clean poly bag to be safe from anything that might then want to eat them, because they're tasty to moths and things. So everything now is kept in airtight, either a tin or a poly bag, and then they're ready to be selected for being painted on. So yeah.
So do you have a favourite feather to paint on? Is there one that's, well, I guess there's favourite, and then there's easier ones and more complicated?
It's no, they're all different, which sounds so obvious when you say it. And when I really first started, the special thing about it to me would have been if I paint, like get a feather from a particular bird and paint that bird on one of its own feathers. That felt like the absolute perfect thing to do. It felt like wonderful. The problem with that for me, because I love painting our native birds of prey, is even if I find a tawny owl feather out in the woods, I would need a license to sell that feather. And it's all to protect the birds, which I totally support and understand. With some of the captive birds of prey, anything that's not native, that doesn't need a license to be kept, I could use those feathers. So basically, that's one reason I don't paint, say, a barn owl on a barn owl feather. The other reason is, when you're an artist, you want your picture to pop and not be sort of hidden. So if I'm painting a barn owl on a feather that's already barn owl coloured, you're fighting against natural camouflage. So what I learned, that if I'm doing a barn owl, it's really lovely to be on a plain, boring, dark brown feather. It stands out more. I'm going to contradict myself completely now by saying I love painting barn owls on fluffy white feathers, but that's a plain white feather, not a barn owl coloured feather. So, and you can, darken the edge of the head to make it stand out. So there's those kinds of reasons affect which feathers I use. Plain ones are better just because they're not distracting from your image that you're painting on them. Sometimes it can add to it if you want a bit of texture in the background. But I'm loving these fluffy white feathers at the moment. There's a lake near where I live, and they have swans and geese and ducks and all sorts on it. And of course, certain times of year, they are molting all over the place. I just go around and pick up a whole load. So those feathers are really lovely to paint on. But that's taken quite a lot of time to evolve to be able to do that, because when I started, it was literally the wing and tail feathers that are nice and firm and easy. But yeah, it's practice, just like anything.
Yeah. So. And I've seen on the our website the flamingo feathers. I thought that was incredible, because obviously they're a bright, vibrant colour to start with anyway. So how do you go about painting on such a vibrant colour, and the macaw feathers as well? Do
you know what, I love painting on the macaw feathers because they are firm, which is good. You get a nice surface. Sometimes it's funny, they're like, sometimes they go really smooth and sometimes they've got their texture, and it's like when you're trying to paint a really delicate thin line with a brush, if it's smooth, it glides, and when you go over a feather, if it's going the wrong way, it literally goes like this, and it's like so it can be really, really frustrating. But the colours, I love them. I mean, I've got Slimbridge not too far up the road, about 45 minutes an hour up the road, and because when those flamingos are molten and you go around and pickle them up, those colours are gorgeous, and that just to me suggests a sort of a sunsetty background. The macaws, I've got several friends who have kept them, and when they molt, they send me the feathers, and they're lovely. I love painting on them. They just sort of add that extra something. I mean, I could easily paint a bright blue colour on a white feather or a different colour feather, but when you've actually got that there and it's natural and already there, it's really nice and special. So
like a natural canvas, really.
It is. They are, and especially when I do the kingfishers, they just seem to work perfectly with those macaw colours. They're just gorgeous. So yeah, very lucky.
So I guess so are the feathers your favourite medium and like work to work on, or do you, or maybe not favourite? I don't know.
They are. I mean, I do love doing it, I must admit. It's but I also love experimenting with all sorts of other things. If I was told I could only paint on feathers forever and ever, amen, I'd be like, oh, that's going to be really boring, because I think most creative people like to try different things. So over the whole of the last 10 years, the feathers have evolved to be the thing that I exhibit, because people seem to like them, and they're what they want to see, and I've gone with that. And then I've got like the nickname the Feather Lady, and it's all grown and grown and grown. And so yes, that is my prime thing. But I do also, I mean, I don't know if you can see it at the back there, I've just had a massive sort of adventure into painting oil seascapes. Like for the whole the spring, I went down to, my mum and dad still live down in Cornwall, which is where I grew up, and I spent a lot of time in the last couple of months walking along the cliffs, enjoying the coast with the dog. And I came back and just had to paint it. And I was at my mum's, I had no kit with me. She said, there you go, use whatever you want, use it there. And so she has oil paints and canvases, which I don't use. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just started playing and experimenting and making these seascapes. So that's like the latest little side step. But everything you do, like, it feeds, it just, you just grow and learn the whole time. And like the alcohol ink thing last summer, that was a whole new thing. I mean, I really love doing workshops with artists who I admire. You know, a lot of artists do that these days, and it's not so that I can go home and copy them and be like them. It's because you just always learn. It's just, it might be the strangest little tip. It might be a color combination, it could be anything, and then you can feed that into what you do. So I love watching other artists work and seeing how they do, or how they maybe, you know, like use color or learn a new technique. So I've done a fair few of those over the last few years, which is, you know, it fascinates me how people do what they do, because you look at a piece of artwork, and quite often, especially for people who aren't artists, they must, you know, like, how on earth do you do that? And and I remember seeing before, you know, and I've gone to, I don't like Vic Bearcroft, like, so he's probably, he exhibits with Southern Nature, and when I was really starting out, I found him he was doing a workshop with the SAA, and I couldn't believe how he got these amazing pictures in pastel of soft fluffy cats with shiny wet eyes using this stump of dusty chalk. I was like, how on earth do you do that? How does this happen? And he said, well, you do this, 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 and this, and did a few workshops, and it was like, oh, okay. And it's like, could you know, he made it look so easy, and it's not, but you learn how to do something, and then you realize it's possible, and then, you know, it's amazing. It's so fascinating seeing how these things happen. And then you kind of, obviously I go home and do my thing my way, but I love all of that, seeing how what makes other people tick as well, and how they achieve a certain, I don't know, whatever it is they do.
So has that been really helpful for you, especially like over maybe the last year, of having a community of people to speak to and like-minded people? Or
yeah, definitely. I mean, it does feel like we've all lost touch a bit over the last year, but obviously with Facebook and social media, it's a really good way of keeping in touch with everyone, and you get to see what everyone is doing, and it's been helpful to keep going. But it's lovely now things it's starting to open up. Just in the last couple of weeks, it feels sort of exciting again, that things are starting to happen. And even the beginning of the year, I wasn't, I don't know, it's hard because it will it, won't it, are we, aren't we, oh, we don't know. But now it's like we're on, I mean, still don't know, still could all go bonkers again, but at least we're a lot more hopeful. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So are there any other mediums you might think of trying out, or is it just again see what happens and what catches your eye? Or
it's almost like there's not enough time in the world to try everything I'd like to do. I mean, like I said, when I was at college, I studied printmaking, so I did etchings and collagraphs and lino cuts, and I would love to do more of that now that I have this huge thing, the birds and the feathers coming out. If I had all the facilities available to me that I had at college now, I just can only imagine what sort of stuff I'd be producing. But so there's all of that. There's the oil painting thing. I'm loving just being really loose and gestural and doing it with a palette knife. But I mean, that's just like the complete opposite end of the scale to my feathers, which are like small and relatively careful, you know, to stand up and be slopping around thick oil paint. And then I find it really frustrating because it doesn't dry for weeks. Like my little things are acrylic and they dry almost instantly and they're done and it's great. I can put them away and I've got these piles of these enormous things behind me drying. It's just really frustrating that they're wet. And but so there's the, oh crikey, there's a million things I'd like to try. But I mean, I've had a go at a few things over the last few years, like done some colour pencil workshops, done the pastels with Vic, done what else, all sorts. But it's just at the moment it's if there is a point of being focused in what you do and keeping at it and not losing the plot, you know, because you have to, if you're being serious about something, you've got to, even now, you've got to keep doing it, you've got to keep practicing, you've got to keep trying to improve and, you know, and be putting yourself out there to be seen, or your work out there. So there's keeping a focus, but then there's, for me, keeping that fresh. And the way I do that is to every now and again just try something else. And I might not even show it publicly, I might just do it and then it stays here behind, you know, no one sees it. I might show my mates, but yeah, so that's me, that's how I keep it fun. But yeah, I do love it. And I've just done some this week and just got right back into it straight away and just loved it. And when I'm painting, it's just the world goes away, you know, it's just me, the birds, the paints, got a little bit quiet music on, I've got dog sitting down at my feet, and it's time just goes, I lose it. It's lovely, it's really nice. So
really, yeah. Sounds lovely. I need some of that, but I'm not very good at art at all. So do you have any advice for people, well perhaps maybe not me, but other people who are trying out art, or what they should do when creating pieces, or what they're
if you're drawn to have a go, just try it. And I think the most important thing, and every artist is guilty, we all compare ourselves to other artists, and if you can manage to do it, don't, you know, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing, do what you love and do it for you. And if it makes you happy, that is honestly the most important thing. And that kind of changes slightly when you're out there and you are trying to sell your work, because there's a part of you that thinks you need to be pleasing other people. But what I actually deep down believe is, if it makes me happy, someone else out there will like it. And it's just a case of finding those people, you know. But anyone, you know, if I think anyone can learn if they want to, it's not impossible. If you don't think you're arty, go and, you know, do a workshop, because you'd be surprised what you can achieve. And if you enjoy it, then that's great, that's the best thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, over the last year or so, I think more people have been experimenting and trying new things, because with all the time that we've had, it's like, well, what do I want to do with my time? Is there something I want to try? And even you yourself have tried something new. And
yeah, I think so many people are wrapped up in life, which is getting up, going out to work, coming home, cooking the tea, sorting the kids out, going to bed, off again. But I think lockdown gave a lot of people a chance to breathe and go, oh, actually, what would I like to try? And what is, you know, I've heard so many people say, oh, well, I heard the birds singing in the garden. It's like, they're always there. You just don't stop to listen. And, you know, they are always there. But this lockdown, you know, for people who don't get a chance, you know, I know that I'm really, really lucky to be able to do what I do. And it is, you know, it's hard sometimes. It's not an easy peasy lemon squeezy, but I am really lucky to be able to paint when I want to, and to walk the dog and enjoy the countryside. I mean, you know, that is a really lovely thing to be able to do. But it's a shame, I think, for people who just don't get a chance to stop and enjoy it every now and again. But
yeah,
there's a weekend. They can go for a walk on a weekend.
Yes, hopefully we'll still have a bit of a break, even though the world hopefully should be returning back to normal at some point. At least hopefully people will start to have a bit more of a balance, having had that chance to stop for a bit. Well, not necessarily stop, but have time to think, I suppose. But I guess the thing that we're all looking forward to in the return of is exhibitions. So you take part in quite a few. So why do you do this? What do you enjoy about them?
Wow, again, this is something that evolved over the last 10 years. Why do I do it? I do it, it gives me a buzz. I've met some amazing people through doing this. It's lovely when you've created something and you're actually happy with it, to see it hanging in an exhibition with other people's artwork is really, it's a buzz. It's exciting. You kind of think, wow, I did that and I'm up there with my mates or whoever's, people I've looked up to, and suddenly I'm exhibiting with, not suddenly, but eventually I'm exhibiting with them, and it's a really lovely feeling. And to hear strangers or your friends and family look at it and go, wow, that's really amazing, we love it, that's cool, that is heartwarming. It makes you feel good. It just kind of, I suppose it's not why we do it because we love doing it. And that's sort of, what's the word, I'm not very good with these words, but it sort of makes it all worthwhile, to get that lovely recognition and feedback, I suppose. And then once you've done one, you want to do more, and it becomes, it's sort of, that my thing. When I started, I literally did a local annual exhibition. I thought it was massive at the time because it had the yellow AA signs out on the road, and to get in that, it was our local art club, and I got in and I was like, I was so excited. And then the next year I thought, I need to do another one. So I think I got into the Bath and West show. They have a little art thing every year, and I got into that, and it sort of keeps you going. It's like a pat on the back. It's like, okay, I can do this. And then every year I've done an extra one, and I've tried to build on what I did the year before and do it in a way that I could cope with, because you can't just go from zero to here. You have to climb the ladder, and you have to grow, and you have to get the experience and evolve with it. And I have, and now I'm at the point where I really want to get out there more and do more, and that's the plan until COVID hit. But we're picking up where we left off, and we're going for it again. But art is lovely, and it needs to be seen. I can paint and paint and paint and have 100 million pictures stashed in my room. That's no good, is it? They're just sitting there. So I really want them to be seen and share them with lots of people. That's why we're doing it.
We expect to see from you at the exhibition this year. What's your piece?
Yeah, well, I haven't decided exactly which ones, but Caroline actually said, "Oh, want some of your seascapes?" And I was like, "Oh, I wasn't planning on exhibiting those, but I think I might put a couple of seascapes in and a couple of feathers into the Southern Nature." So, and then I'll be in the art market, and we'll have a nice selection of all my bits and bobs in there. So, yeah, if I don't know, it's a funny one. I probably will. I'll probably do that. I'll probably do 2 feathers and 2 seascapes, but which ones I'm not sure yet. So we'll see.
And hopefully they'll be dry in time.
Oh yeah, they better be. They're out there now. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you, and I look forward to meeting you at the exhibition and seeing your pieces, whichever ones they will be. But thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, and I look forward to seeing you there, and everybody. It'll be so much fun. We have a brilliant time up there at Southern Nature. It's a great community, loads of friends to catch up with, and I can't wait.